All right, we're talking about mean and trimmed mean. So just really quick, mean is the math word for what we usually in layman terms call average, okay? It's the same thing. So when we say trimmed mean, it's trimmed average. So when I talk about trimmed, I'm pretty sure the term this is similar to this. You think about trimming the fat, okay? So if you take like a cut of meat, usually what you do is you cut off this stuff right here, the fat, because it's gross and you don't need to eat it, or you don't need to eat that much, okay? That's called trimming the fat. The fat is on the edge of the meat. When we do trimmed mean, we are going to trim away the edge numbers, just like the fat. And just like the fat, they don't really represent the whole thing. So if I say I'm going to eat a steak, you don't really count that as part of the steak. You're thinking of that part, okay? So we trim away the extra, so we're left with what we really care about. That's my like metaphor for what trimmed mean is. So basically, trimmed mean is when you take the average of a group of numbers, but you don't include the top and the bottom number. I know some teachers do stuff like this when they're doing your marks. You know how they say like, oh, I'll exclude your bottom quiz mark? In math, if you take off the bottom one, you got to take off the top one too, so you can be represented with what's left in the middle. I know in the Olympics they do this too. Sometimes like some events, they'll take off like the top and bottom judge scores or something to try and make it more representative. Because the idea is, like we talked about other times, outliers are numbers that don't fit the pattern, and a lot of times the top and the bottom are going to be the outliers, the weird numbers. So let's do an example. Let's say you played a lacrosse game, and this is how many points you got in different games. Okay, so the first game you got 0, then 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, 10. I put these in order of size because then it's a lot easier to figure out, well, this is the smallest and this is the biggest. So normally if we did average, we would add all of these together and then divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But because we're doing weighted average, we're actually going to exclude the bottom number and exclude the top number. So we're left just with the middles. And like we said before, outliers are the ones on the edges, so we can cut those out and then we'll just do these. So the average, the weighted average here would be 4 plus 5 plus 5 plus 6 divided by 4. So that's going to be 20 divided by 4. So the trimmed average, the trimmed mean, would be 5. And if we look at the numbers, that is pretty representative because the 10 was pretty far away from the rest of them, and the 0 was also pretty far away. So I would exclude those. The nice thing about trimmed mean is that it's pretty even. So if we do another example, let's say we're going to cut off the bottom one and the top one. You could also cut off the second bottom and the second top, as long as you make it even. Now, the only problem is the more you cut, the less numbers you're left with. And in this situation, I might not want to do that because having only 3 numbers left is not a lot. If you had like 100 numbers to cut off the 2 or 3 at the edges, wouldn't make as much of a difference. Okay, so I would maybe not cut off those 2 and I'd keep these, and then we would add them together and average them. So 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 divided by 5. So whatever that is will give you the trimmed mean. That's all we have to say about trimmed average. That's the basics of it. It's usually considered to be better than average. Trimmed average is better than just average because it cuts off outliers every time. And it's nice because it's not very hard once you have all the numbers in order. That's it.